Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few kickers I looked at off the waiver wire this week. The first kicker, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Boswell coming off a monster game with 350-plus yarders, 240, 49-yard range, and a 25-yarder in the victory at the Atlanta Falcons. So this Pittsburgh Steelers team, I don't care if it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields at the quarterback position. I think all season they're going to have some trouble scoring the football and punching in the end zone, that's where Chris Boswell comes into play, and he'll get opportunities per game. So obviously I don't expect him to score 25 fantasy points weekly as Chris Boswell, but he's shown indoors at the Atlanta Falcons that he's got a big boot and he could put up some fantasy points. So right now, he's coming off the monster performance and available in 95% of fantasy leagues. And like I said, this Steelers offense don't have much going for them besides George Pickens. And if you want to consider Najee Harris still a big-time running back where they could put the ball in the end zone. But like I said, the quarterback, he didn't really do much in that game. And I don't think Russell Wilson has much left in the tank where he's going to put up 25, 30 points a game. So Chris Boswell this season should get a lot of chances. In week 2 with Denver, obviously a great place to kick the football. And Denver's defense isn't all that bad as well. So right now, available 95% of fantasy leagues. Next kicker, Blake Grubb of the New Orleans Saints, available 97% of fantasy leagues. And he had a big ball game. 22 fantasy points with 250-plus yarders, 5 extra points, 43-yarder, and a 34-yarder in that blowout victory at the Panthers. Every week we know this New Orleans Saints team's not going to put up 47 points. Panthers, one of the worst, if not the worst teams in all the NFL coming into the season. But Blake Grubb's got a big leg, and we saw last season they traded off Will Lutz to get Grubb on the roster after he made it and won the training camp battle. So Grubb's got a big boot. He plays indoor. This week it's going to be a tougher matchup at the Dallas Cowboys, but it's an indoor game, and this Cowboy defense is a bend-but-don't-break unit, obviously, where Grubb might have to settle for a few field goals. So right now, after coming off the monster performance, he's a kicker I looked at off the wire this week. The next kicker, Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears. So many seasons, Cairo Santos has been a solid kicker for the Chicago Bear team, and right now, he signed a contract extension last season, available in 75% of fantasy leagues, coming off at 12 fantasy points. And the Bear offense, they didn't look all that great at the Titans. Their defense won them that ball game in week 1. And week 2, matchup at Houston, indoor ball game. They're going to have to put up points in a hurry, is the Chicago Bear team, if they want to pull off the victory on Sunday Night Football. And Cairo Santos, he has a big boot, and he's been in the league a very long time, and he's been productive. So Santos coming off a double-digit performance, he's definitely a kicker I looked at off the wire this week. The next kicker, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. Myers, he had a solid year last year, finishing in the top 15 at the kicker position in points, available in 88% of fantasy leagues. And he's on a good offense with the Seattle Seahawks team. They got Metcalf, got Lockett, Kenneth Walker, even though he's banged up, JSN. But there's going to be times, and we saw it a lot last season, and we even saw it in week 1, where they're going to have to settle for field goals. Is a Seattle Seahawks team. So Myers, like I said, available in 80% of fantasy league. He's got a good boot. He's an accurate kicker, and he's on an offense where they stall out a decent amount in the red zone over the last couple seasons. Myers, this week, a good matchup at the Patriots, where their defense as well has been bend but don't break. So if you need a kicker, I think Myers is a decent option. And the fifth and final kicker I looked at off the wire this week's Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So McLaughlin, every season, he's under the radar, and he has some games where he puts up double-digit points. Is Chase McLaughlin available in 98% of fantasy leagues and coming off a double-digit performance in week 1 in the blowout victory of the Washington Commanders, where he had 14 fantasy points, a 55-yarder in that one, 33-yarder, and a 28-yarder. Week 2, it could be a potential shootout at the Detroit Lions, an indoor game. And like I said, McLaughlin, the last few seasons, he's been a solid kicker where he's been putting the football through the uprights and has good accuracy. And this Tampa Bay Buc team, they get to the red zone a decent amount of times per game. So that's a few kickers I looked at off the wire for week 2 of the fantasy football season.